Welcome back. For those of you who are starting with part 2,
Why would anybody start on a part 2?
I don't know. Maybe they're dyslexic.
Wait,
Anyways.
what?
Anyways, we are about at the midpoint of chronicling the War of the Beasts.
Yes, but a little background. We find Koorland has found the mighty primarch Vulkan, who now leads the Empire on an attack against the greenskin hordes on the planet of Ullanor.
Quite right, Breather. And now, without further ado, can you please give tale of the first Battle of Ullanor?
With pleasure, my good sir. Now, with Vulkan at their forefront, the massive Imperial coalition set forth towards Ullanor Prime in order to halt the greenskin menace. The Imperial forces were comprised of several Space Marine chapters, including the chapter of the Last Wall, the Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Space Wolves, and even some Ultramarines. A sizable detachment of several Astra Militarum regiments, as well as a sizable Mechanicus force, including Tyrannus Imperial Knights and Titans of the Legio Ultima. Though the Primarch was the nominal commander of this formidable Imperial force, he secluded himself aboard the Fifth Exemplar's battle barge, Alcazar Remembered, the acting Imperial command ship, offering little advice. So therefore, the burden of command fell to Lord Commander Koorland to oversee the overall strategy of the upcoming campaign. The Imperials were able to deduce through a communion of several librarians that the location of the Beast's lair lay within a capital on Ullanor Prime. Together, the Imperial force invaded the Beast's capital world and assaulted the city of Gorkagrod, fighting alongside the Primarch. Within the center of the capital city lay the Temple Palace of the Beast, located on the exact spot where the Emperor and the Primarchs had assembled 1,500 years earlier during the triumph of Ullanor. Meanwhile, Grand Master of Assassins Vangrich deployed the venom assassin Assad Wire, known as the Beast Cruel, to Ullanor Prime on a secret mission to find and eliminate the Beast. Much to their surprise, the Imperial forces found the planet heavily colonized and covered almost completely in ramshackle but surprisingly organized Ork urban settlements.
This is highly unusual because, well, they're orcs.
Yep. But due to the protection of an immense energy field and the advent of a multitude of surface-to-orbit missile batteries, orbital bombardment of the Imperial fleet was largely ineffective, forcing them to launch their ground forces directly into the jaws of the Greenskin Tide. As the initial assault commenced, an Ork electromagnetic weapon decimated the first wave of Mechanicus ships. Once they were able to hit landfall, however, the Imperial commanders were concerned by the seemingly disorganized and weak resistance displayed thus far by the Orks. As the Imperial ground forces pushed their way towards the outer defenses of the capital city, it was here that the Beast unleashed his first real resistance. As the surface of the planet itself moved, it soon became clear the Orks had turned Ullanor into an attack planet, akin to their attack moons that had plagued the Imperium throughout the galaxy. Utilizing the terrain to their advantage, the Orks drew the Imperial forces into deadly urban kill zones, inflicting horrendous casualties on the Imperial attackers. Showing an unusual display of tenacity and discipline, the Orks made the Imperial forces pay for every inch of land they took, especially through their use of exotic weapons that they were both psychic and gravitic in nature.
You know, I find it interesting how many humans are slaughtered simply because humanity can't grasp the fact that not all Orc commanders are stupid.
Indeed, but to make matters worse, a seemingly endless tide of Gargants appeared and began to exchange fire with the Imperial's battle titans. As the battle continued, casualties mounted, with the Astra Militarum regiments rapidly approaching nearly 50% casualties, while 1 in every 3 Astartes were lost during the Imperial forces' drive on the capital city. Despite suffering severe attrition, it was only through the direct intervention of Primarch Vulkan himself, along with the sheer determination of the Imperial forces on the ground, that they were able to slowly advance forward. Meanwhile, Assad Wire, the Imperial assassin, managed to infiltrate the immense temple of Gork and Mork, located at the center of the massive Ork capital, which was believed to be the Beast's lair. Once he was inside, the assassin found tens of thousands of war boss-sized mega-armored orcs, accompanied by a mega gargant that was held in reserve. Assad Wire realized he would never be able to get close enough to the beast with such a massive force arrayed against him. He also realized that he needed to warn the Imperial forces of the impending trap. Assad Wire commandeered an orc flyer and managed to reach the Imperial lines, informing them of the orcs' trap. Apprised of the situation, Lord Commander Koorland ordered that their forces would instead strike at the orcs' supply depots. With the Primarch's approval, Koorland put his plan into action. As the orcs were already experiencing food shortages, they had already begun to turn on their own, eating Gretchen, human slaves, and even each other. The Imperials believed that by putting the orcs' remaining food storehouses in jeopardy, they'd be able to draw the beast out and his elite guards into the open. The attack on the orcs' food supplies fulfilled their intended purposes. As the center of the Gorkengrad shook as it spat forth masses of waves of greenskins and gargants, yet the wave of humanity pressed forward. As the Imperial forces continued to fight their way towards the massive temple, the orcs revealed their final surprise. The temple itself was, in fact, a mega gargant beyond normal classifications. Emitting powerful psychic energy from its artificial eyes, the massive orc walker rained fiery death down upon the Imperial forces. In a desperate last stand, Vulkan led the remaining 3,000 Astartes in a final suicidal airborne assault against the orc superweapon, in the vain hope of reaching the beast and finally slaying the fell creature once and for all. Penetrating the Temple Gargant's outer hull, the Imperial forces encountered orc stampas defending within. The Astarte forces continued their inexorable advance, slaughtering every greenskin they encountered, until they reached a large central chamber. Here they came upon a large power generator and a massive 10-meter-high metal idol of a mighty orc. It was only when the statue began to move that the Space Marines realized that they faced no mere idol, but the beast itself, clad entirely in a massive suit of mega armor. The Crimson Fist and Ultramarine chapter masters, Quasandra and Odin Thamus, were quickly killed by the beast, and the Blood Angels Captain Velfor attempted to attack the creature, but was swatted away like an insect. No such creature had been encountered since the time of the Great Crusade. The massive orc was a foe beyond any mortal's understanding, and no mere Astartes could face such a nightmarish creature. Therefore, it fell to Vulkan to confront the massive greenskin alone. Koorland finally came to the understanding that the Primarch intended to sacrifice himself in order to slay the creature. Therefore, the Lord Commander respected the Primarch's wishes and ordered a tactical withdrawal. High Marshal Bohemond once again objected to following Koorland's leadership when he ordered the Astartes to evacuate, so Koorland pimp-slapped him in the face.
His backhand was strong.
Indeed. Thoroughly humbled by the High Lord, the High Marshal ran crying back to his ship, rubbing his face in disgrace. During the epic final encounter with the beast, the massive orc warboss revealed that it could speak perfect Gothic. The fell creature gloated that it had brought humanity to its knees, and that it would be its final doom. The Salamander Primarch tackled the gargantuan creature, and both the combatants tumbled into the Temple Gargant's power generator. Vulkan was inundated by the massive influx of warg energy, but instead of being utterly consumed by it, like so many others, the Primarch reached into the reserves of his own primal and savage essence, becoming one with the influx of orc energy, and launched one final attack, slamming his warhammer, Doom Tremor, into the face of the beast and detonating the power generator. This caused a chain reaction that destroyed the Temple Gargant in a massive explosion, which seemingly obliterated both Vulkan and the beast. With the apparent death of the beast, the morale of the orcs was shattered, and all greenskin resistance on Ullanor crumbled. The badly mauled Imperial Crusade force limped back to Terra. When they finally reached orbit over the Imperial throne world, an orcish chant could be heard broadcasting across all Imperial frequencies, repeating, "I'm Slaughter, I'm Slaughter, I am Slaughter."
Now, seeing a problem with his forces being bled dry from the fighting on Ullanor, and agreeing with Draken Vengurik, that a new change of tactics was apt, Koorland proposed forming elite kill teams of Astartes to track down and eliminate the Ork leadership as well as key strategic targets. When Koorland revealed to the High Lords that these kill teams would be drawn from multiple chapters, exist purely under his command, and exist even after the beast was defeated, he met bitter opposition led by Tobris Eckharth, who stated that it went against the foundations of the post-heresy Imperium and rulings of Rabute Gilman, who repeatedly declared such actions as blasphemy in a manner that uneased the others.
So, Koorland displayed his mighty right hand and pimp-slapped Tobris Eckharth to the ground. After that, the rest of the High Lords agreed that Koorland's way was the right way to do things.
Well, funny, this is not how it went.
Aw.
They disapproved of the idea until the Ork attack moon over Terra, long since thought derelict, reactivated. With its subspace gate seemingly repaired, massive Ork reinforcements swarmed in to reinforce the moon, as the Beast himself announced on all frequencies that he would bring slaughter to humanity. Hearing this, the rest of the Lords of Terra thought Koorland's idea was pretty good, and they formed the Death Watch. As the Death Watch boarded the attack moon, the Imperial Navy desperately sought to hold back the New Ork fleet that were swarming from the vessel. They were able to hold the line long enough for the Death Watch to plant Mechanicum beacons, reverse engineered from the Ork subspace technology, onto the moon. The Imperials planned to teleport the entire attack moon out of the Sol system, but the Mechanicum was unable to master the potent Ork technologies. As a result, half the moon simply vanished, while the other half shattered and blanketed Terra in a storm of debris. In the ensuing disaster, hundreds of millions died, and much of the Imperial Palace itself was damaged. Undeterred, Koorland planned his next move on the Beast. Realizing that they needed a counter to the potent Ork psychics, the Death Watch followed a lead by Veritas to find the last remaining bastion of the Sisters of Silence.
Excuse me half a second, Yuksen, but could you mind just giving us a brief explanation of who the Sisters of Silence are?
Sure. The Sisters of Silence was a group created by the Emperor to obviously fight psychics, or those who use psychic powers, not necessarily psychics. In some cases, they were able to take the energy and basically mirror it back onto the person, so to speak.
There were also
But-
blanks too, right?
Yeah.
All right. And okay, if I recall right, a blank is somebody that has absolutely no contact with a warp, right?
I'm not sure about that.
Well, it's okay. So
They blanks create a void field that disregards all psychic
warp energy, right?
warp related energy.
So a blank literally is a void for the warp.
Right.
I mean, it's a little tiny one, but I mean, honestly, anyways, when I think of blanks, I think of Jurgen for Cypress Kane. He's probably the most famous blank that I can think of. But you're also saying
was one that was also part of Inquisition's group.
Was he as smelly as Jurgen?
Hmm?
I said, was he as smelly as Jurgen?
No.
Okay. So
they had found a way for him to turn it on and off, though, which was interesting.
Huh. Okay. But the thing that is interesting about the Sisters of Silence is, from what you've told me anyways, not only are they blanks, but they're able to, like, cast warp energy back on a person.
According to what we know.
According to the tomes we found from the Inquisition.
All right. So the leader of the sisters that they did finally find.
So, well, no. Hang on a second before. Sorry to interrupt your chronicling a little bit, but so it makes sense, anyways, that they really actually need these people, right? These sisters, because they can help combat against the Wog energy of the Orks.
Yeah, because the only other people that I could think of that would really work for that, and there definitely wasn't enough. Well, actually, there's two. One is Necron Peri, which, yeah, like that would ever happen.
Yeah.
Because the thing is the Sisters of Silence are known to have this gene that the Peri Necrons actually have that creates this ability.
I was thinking also maybe the Warp Weavers, but they're long dead.
That has this ability are, I believe it's the Kulexis assassins, which once again, yeah, like that would help. I mean, there's so few of them out there.
Right. Well, also the Warp Weavers would be able to probably do it, but the Emperor killed them all. What?
So we think, anyways.
Well, Warp Weavers were kind of interesting. They literally, anyways, anything that resembled the warp they got close to literally exploded. So like demons would rush up on them anyways, and they would just explode. They're kind of an interesting subsect, but we don't have time to actually go through that, Yuksen.
Yeah.
Why did you bring it up? Jeez. Come on, man. We're talking about the Beast.
So,
were these Sisters of Silence helpful?
Okay, so the Sisters of Silence that they found, once they finally found them, were on the So Koorland did end up leading an expedition to the far reaches of the Segmentum Pacificus to try and find the lost sisters dealing with Ork forces along the way that were also hunting the Psyker Killers, much for the same reason that Koorland was trying to find them. Not wanting, for them to kill off Orks, obviously.
Right. Well, no, they wanted to kill off Orks.
Nadiris, the Death Watch found the sisters' fortress under siege from an Ork army led by a massive Gargant. Koorland led the effort to lift the siege, and once inside was able to convince the reluctant sisters to join after revealing that he had the blessing of Vulkan himself. And the only reason why that worked is because as he found out from the leader of the sisters there was they were fiercely loyal to the Emperor and the Primarchs, but they would rather see the current Imperium burn than actually come to their aid.
So I was actually about to ask anyways, why were the sisters so reluctant? It's because this all ties back to the High Lords of Terra, doesn't it? It's like when look at them and went, no, we're not helping these Bolsheviks.
Now, what they probably did is they went, oh, great. So these people, they had been cast out. First of all, they had been cast out by the Imperium. So yeah, that doesn't help. And then after that, they're just like, yeah, this is such a corrupt place now. It should just burn. So I figure at this point, they would probably be at the point that it's like, here, let's put some lighter fluid and throw the match on there for them.
It's kind of interesting because we just did anyways a whole month anyways about Alpha Legion, and we kind of came to the same conclusion. The Alpharius kind of had the same conclusion as these people did, the Sisters of Silence, right?
Yeah.
Looked at the Imperium and just said, no, this isn't going to work. Interesting how other people other than Alpharius anyways thought the same thing. But anyways, so what happened after he picked up these Sisters of Silence?
Anyways, devising a new plan to defeat the Beast, the Death Watch captured several Ork psychers on Idolica, Pleos, and Valhalla. Koorland intended to use the null effect of the anti-psyker sisters to create a reverse Wa effect through the Ork psyche and essentially decimate the greenskin hordes of the Beast, using their own power against them. After successfully conducting their theory against a large Ork force on the world of Incus Maximal, the Lord Commander declared his intent to launch a second invasion on Ullanor Prime. This time they would slay the Beast, utilizing their new secret weapon.
Now I must mention here, sorry, this is known as the Second Battle of Ullanor.
Yes. Not to be confused with, the fact that they had the Ullanor Crusade.
The Ullanor campaign, the first Battle of Ullanor, and the third Battle of Ullanor, which we'll be getting to in momentarily. This is, in fact, the second Battle of Ullanor.
And yet, like the 6th or 7th, technically.
Yeah, fair enough. Sorry, but carry on, sir.
Leading a large but much smaller Imperial crusade during the Second Battle of Ullanor, this force was comprised of several battered chapters. This strike force was further augmented by the Death Watch, several Astra Militarum regiments consisting mainly of several veteran units of the first campaign, along with several dozen Sisters of Silence. The Lord Commander would personally lead an assassination force to seek out and slay the Beast, consisting of the following: High Marshal Bohemund, Deathwatch Chapter Master Asgar Warfist, a single 6-man Deathwatch kill team, led by Raven Guard Sergeant Tyrus, the Imperial Assassin Isad Wire, the Skitarii Ranger Alpha 13 Jazal, a squad of 6 Sisters of Silence led by Knight Abyssal Cavalanera Brasanas, Commissar Hiliad Goss, and 2 Ogrins.
Well, obviously, they painted the Ogrins green, right?
Only conclusion that I can come to, Zeckthar. Only one that I can come to. Anywho, the Imperials began the second invasion by launching several damaged warships manned by skeleton crews, sacrificing themselves spectacularly as they collided with the large energy field that protected the world's capital of Garkograd, causing it to overload. With the shield temporarily disabled, Koorland's assassination team used this opportunity to teleport into Gorkograd's central complex. The Imperial strike force met little resistance and quickly realized that the Beast was already aware of their presence. The energy shield was quickly reactivated and a large Ork force was diverted towards the Imperial strike force in the palace. Meanwhile, a large Ork fleet suddenly appeared in orbit and launched an ambush against the Imperial fleet. Though the trap was set by the Beast, Koorland would not be deterred, as he was intent on succeeding. The Imperial strike force fought a desperate battle of survival, but eventually they managed to reach the complex's central throne world, where they encountered 6 thrones, 6 statues, and 6 banners. Seated in one of these thrones was a massive orc armored in mega armor. This creature was as large as a walker. To compound matters, the Imperials were surrounded by a large force of Gargants that stood taller than the Imperial Reaver-class Titan. As the other members of the strike team held off the Beast's honor guard, the Lord Commander and other Space Marines engaged the Beast. Though they proved ineffective against the massive creature, they held off the Beast long enough for the Sisters of Silence to enact their ritual and activate their anti-psyker effect. Due to the Sister of Silence's pariah effect, the Ork psyker that was present imploded, which resulted in a sort of feedback effect, causing reverse wah chain reaction that swept across Ullanor, affecting the massive horde of greenskins, temporarily disabling both the Beast's honor guard and several Ork vehicles. The war boss was only momentarily disabled, which allowed one last desperate final attack by Koorland and the assassination team, which narrowly slew the felled creature. Though Koorland's plan succeeded, the Imperial's victory was short-lived as a larger and even more vicious Ork appeared. The Lord Commander recognized the creature as the original Beast that had fought the primarch Vulkan during the first invasion. It was revealed that the creature Koorland killed was in fact one of 6 Primorks, each a variable beast in its own right. After this revelation, the newly revealed Beast swept aside the Imperial assassination force and killed Koorland by crushing the Lord Commander under one of his massive boots. With the death of the last son of Dorn, the Imperials recovered the fallen Lord Commander's body and fled to the surface of the planet.
Yeah, that's a pretty sad end, anyways, to somebody that's actually pretty awesome. I mean, Koorland did a lot of stuff anyways that was honestly put the Imperium back on the right track for as little time as it did. We'll get into that later. But regardless, following the tragic death of Koorland during the Second Battle of Ullanor, the High Lords of Terra remained indecisive, as usual, on what the best course of action should be taken to end the threat of the remaining Greenskins. Shortly after the events of Ullanor, the core systems of the Segmentum Solar were subjugated to a renewed wave of attacks carried out by the seemingly never-ending tide of Greenskins. Paralyzed by the lack of clear and concise orders, the majority of the battle fleet Solar was utterly devastated by an Ork fleet of Space Hulks. During this new wave of attacks, tragically, Ecclesiarch Mesring was killed during the Orks' onslaught. I'm sorry. I've just been doing a lot of research anyways on the Imperial cult, and I can never say it's a bad thing when an Ecclesiarch dies. But anyways, just before dying, the half-mad Ecclesiarch raved in a nearly incomprehensible astropathic message that nearby worlds should throw open their gates to the forces of the beast. Like I said before, they're kind of kooky. But anyways, tragically, several cardinal worlds made the fatal mistake of complying with the insane Ecclesiarch's final directive and peacefully surrendered, which resulted in those planets' populations being massacred. Must be noted, though, that during this time, the Space Wolves followed their primal urge to return to their feral homeworld of Fenris, while the Ultramarines and their successor chapters became bogged down in the defense of key regions of the Ultima Segmentum. With their warlords slain, the Orks launched an all-out rampage across the Imperium, butchering and slaughtering whole worlds with impunity. While the Orks continued to rage unabated across the worlds of the Imperium, the 5th Exemplar, Chapter Master Maximus Thane, came to the decision to take decisive action against the Greenskin threat, while attending Koorland's funeral during the Feast of Blades on their Primarch's homeworld in Inwit. Unlike Koorland and the Primarch Vulkan, the Chapter Master had no intention of attempting to work with the ineffective High Lords of Terra, which was probably very smart, and instead began gathering key component individuals to form an inner circle of trusted advisors. Allying himself with the Grand Master of Assassins, Draken Vangerich, and Fabricator General Kubik of the Adeptus Mechanicus, Thane and his co-conspirators began to secretly plan for a third offensive engagement against Ullanor in an attempt to snatch victory from the seemingly crushing defeat. The first phase of Thane's plan called for the remaining last wall chapters to set aside a portion of the remaining strength in order to reconstitute the Imperial 5th chapter. With the death of Koorland, the last son of Dorn, during the recent Second Battle of Ullanor, the Imperial 5th were now an extinct chapter, because he was the only one left. This was both a travesty and a great tragedy that needed to be addressed post-haste, as the original first founding chapter descended from Rogel Dorn could not be allowed to remain extinct. Within a short span of time, 1,000 battle brothers had been gathered from every chapter, comprised of the scions of Dorn, and stood proudly in their battle plate that was freshly repainted in the livery of Imperial Fists on the parade grounds of the Imperial Palace back on the Imperial throne world. Maximus Thane stood at the head of the reconstituted Imperial Fists as their new chapter master. The truth of the destruction of the Imperial Fists at Ardamantia was deemed necessary to keep from the citizens of Terra, who now rejoiced at seeing the stalwart defenders of Terra marching in parade at full strength. However, the High Lords knew the truth of what had occurred, and though they agreed to keep this tragic event from wider masses, grew suspicious of Thane's true intentions. Thane intended to repeat Koorland's original strategy and devised a plan to capture another Ork Psyker in order to utilize the creature in conjunction with the innate para abilities of the Silent Sisters, in order to create a reverse Rog effect to slay the beast once and for all. Meanwhile, the chapter master took advantage of the Grand Master of Assassins' power and influence to help their cause. Vangerich used his considerable influence to intimidate both Lord Commander Militant Verholt and Lord High Admiral Lansing into contributing their combined resources for a renewed push on Ullanor Prime. Unlike the previous campaigns launched against the Greenskins on Ullanor, Thane opted to utilize more unconventional tactics in order to gain an advantage over their foes. Utilizing the advanced technologies of the Mechanicus, Chapter Master Thane had the Imperial Strike Force redirect several asteroids and send them in devastating waves to collide with the highly populated capital world that now teem with literally trillions of orcs. With orcs distracted by the devastating assault of asteroids that collided with the planet, knocking out orbital and ground defenses, the bulk of the Imperial troops utilized a modified asteroid dubbed 44 Thusa and used it to make a controlled landing on the Orc planet. Hang on, before
Okay.
you hear
You
anyway.
know what these sound like? They
It
sound like rocks.
orcs.
They sound like rocks.
They sound like orc rocks. Yeah, I know. So
Just wait, they'll have teleportation devices on the rocks.
Yep. Now, this guy actually, Chapter Master Thane, anyways, to me, anyways, is an obscure person in history. It seems like he actually studied his enemy and used his enemy's own tactics against him. I mean, that's what it sounds like, right?
Well, except for they had next to no knowledge about anything orc related.
Well, okay, I think he saw anyways what took place beforehand on the first and second battles of Ullanor, and then also anyways the just massive assault anyways of the Greenskins, and he's looking at these like attack moons, and he goes, we take a few smaller ones of those anyways, and you just hawk them at this planet. That might work.
Yeah.
But anyways, even though they had made a successful controlled landing, the asteroid still made a devastating impact that wiped out much of the capital city of Gork-Agrod. The Imperial Strike Force then launched their main assault in the form of 5 separate attack groups. The attack group was comprised of the newly reinstituted Imperial Fists and the Sisters of Silence, led by the Chapter Master Thane himself. Another group was comprised of the Mechanicus forces led by Magos Gerg Zokov, while a third attack group was comprised of the remaining Last Wall chapters, led by our good friend, High Marshal Bohemond. The fourth attack group was led by the former Wolf Lord Eisger Warfist, who is now the first Watch Commander of the Death Watch, and the Inquisitorial Representative Wynand, while the final attack group remained in orbit, which was led by the formidable Imperial Fist Mobile Fortress Monastery, the Phalanx itself, which was manned by the chapter's 10th company and 2 demi-companies of Imperial Fists. Having annihilated the majority of the Orc settlements on Gork-Agrod by the Imperial asteroid attack, this time the Imperial forces faced a more straightforward fight. Though the battle was still a desperate struggle, as they now faced a never-ending wave of angry and pissed-off, battle-frenzied Orcs. 4 of the 5 attack groups concentrated on keeping the Orcs distracted, while the last group, led by Chapter Master Thane, continued their drive on the Beast Gargant Palace, located at the center of the capital city. With the 3 remaining captive Orc Psykers held by the Imperial Fists, they utilized one of these fell creatures to annihilate remaining Orcs located around the proximity of the Central Palace complex. Another one of these powerful greenskin Psykers was lost during a vicious firefight. Meanwhile, in orbit, the Imperial fleet sustained heavy losses, while the Phalanx itself was forced to defend itself from boarding Orcs. Though exhausted and bloody, Thane's attack group finally managed to penetrate the Orc Palace and fight their way towards the complex central throne room, where they once again came across 6 thrones, made for 6 beast-sized prime Orcs. During the final epic battle, the Imperial Strike Force was confronted by one of these truly nightmarish monsters, which they speculated to be the Beast of Beasts. After a hard-fought and desperate bloody struggle, the Sisters of Silence, led by Knight Abyssal Culvarian Brassanis, conducted the final ritual with the remaining Orc Psyker, and using their innate psychic null effect, they created a powerful anti-Warg effect. The chain reaction of this deadly effect successfully annihilated the remaining Orcs within the palace complex and caused the massive head of the Beast of Beasts to explode spectacularly, just before it could slay Chapter Master Thane. Now, this actually kind of concludes the War of the Beast. At this point, anyways, the Orks, anyways, they all kind of flee and disappear. What happens to the Imperium, though, after this, anyways, will drastically change, anyways, the outcome of the Empire of Man. Right, Yuksen?
Right. Like, for example, we mentioned in part one, one of the things that happened that came from this is they broke up the Inquisition into 3 parts. They had now the Hereticus, the Ordos Malleus, and Ordos Xenos. Ordos Malleus focuses on demons, Ordos Xenos, aliens, and then Hereticus is just, heretics. Okay, so self-explanatory.
There's another thing, anyways, that is kind of a small anecdote to history, or anecdote to history. As you mentioned before, anyways, Yuksen, the Mechanicus was figuring out this whole teleporting concept, and they relocated Ullanor. You want to tell people, anyways, what they renamed the planet when they relocated it?
So, according to what we found,
This is so
Ullanor got relocated to, just give me a moment here to pull it up through my sources.
Your tomes.
Okay, so what ended up happening is they ended up teleporting it to a secret location in Segmentum Solar, and it later became Armageddon.
So yes, for all of you fine people, anyways, that know anything about orcs, Ullanor became Armageddon. Ta-da!
Just to follow through with the fact that this planet apparently has been the bane for humanity when it comes to orcs.
It does kind of beg the question why they haven't blown it up.
Well, it's because now I think Armageddon is still, even though it's severely...
Well, now, obviously, they can't. Yeah, no, I get you there. But, I mean, originally, why didn't they just blow it up instead of relocating it?
Yeah.
Yeah, anyways, I just found that kind of tickled my fancy anyways when I heard about that. But when Thane actually made it back to Holy Terra, he actually he became
on that note, actually, originally the Mechanicus was ordered to do it, but Fabricator General Kubik, the one
to
that
do
was
what?
helping Thane,
Hang on, to do what? Blow up the planet?
To enact the exterminatus on Ullanor. But thanks to the wonderful Fabricator General Kubik, who coveted the green skin artifacts, he sent it away to hide it.
And thus we have now Armageddon.
So that wonderful Fabricator General that helped Thane, he was the reason why Armageddon exists.
Yeah. Well, Thane's story doesn't actually end here, because he becomes, after this, he becomes the High Lord of Terra, doesn't he?
He becomes, you mean a Lord Commander?
Or the Lord Commander,
anyway.
Yeah. And because so I said anyways that the Orks kind of disappeared, but they really didn't. I mean, they're still all over the place.
Yeah.
So he leaves. Who does he leave in charge? He leaves the Grandmaster of Assassins in charge, right?
It's more like basically what ended up happening is that the Grandmaster of Assassins ended up basically killing off all the other High Lords. Himself.
I forgot about the coup. I think they called it what, the beheading?
Yeah, and so he basically just killed them all off, and so he actually reigned for about 100 years before they finally went, this guy's kind of gone insane now.
Yeah, but if I recall right, Chapter Master Thane was cool with it, right?
Yeah, until the Grandmaster had truly lost it.
Yeah, which by the way, it's kind of sad because, I mean, he obviously anyways became insane with power. He became corrupted by power, right? Which is too bad, because throughout what we've just read and the whole concept of the War of the Beast anyways, he was kind of a good guy.
He was intelligent. he was a manipulator, but
He's an assassin. That comes with the territory. But he was kind of the perfect guy, anyways, to be in that situation, anyways, to be able to finagle his way politically, anyways, through the High Lords of Terra to actually make a lot of this stuff work.
Right.
And I would be remiss to say, anyways, that if he wasn't there, who knows what would have happened.
Well, the same could be said with, what was the Inquisitor's name? Wynand?
Oh, the one, anyways, that was supposed to fake her own death?
The one that did supposedly fake her own death?
Yeah, that one.
And then notice how the person ended up surviving, I think, the entire thing. In fact, wasn't that person one of the people that led one of the attack groups?
Oh, against the Grandmaster at the end?
In the third Battle of Ullanor.
Oh, no. Okay, yeah, in the third battle? Yeah, she was there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I find it interesting that while, anyways, the High Lords of Terra, anyways, if they had been marching in line, anyways, and they had humanity as their first aspect, things wouldn't have gone nearly as south as they did.
Right.
But thankfully, because we had a couple of these people that were in place that really did actually think of humanity first, it's the only way that this actually worked.
Yeah.
It's the only reason why humanity still exists.
And they happen to be master manipulators, which helped also.
Yeah. Well, and as we find out later on, anyways, like I said, after the beheading, anyways, the Grand Master of Assassins, he does slowly become more insane, more corrupt with power. He becomes a tyrant. I mean, now mind you, anyways, he started out as a tyrant, but he was an okay tyrant for a while. And then all of a sudden he just started going more and more insane, probably because, like you said, he's a master manipulator, and he became more and more paranoid that everybody was out to get him. Because that's normally what happens.
Except for ironically, the person who attacked him. But that's another story that can be told about the assassin named Asad Wire.
Yeah.
Who we don't know what happened to him. He also disappears.
Well, eventually, if I recall right, anyways, he was turned into, after his failed attempt, anyways, on the Grand Master, he was turned into an Evisor assassin.
Yeah, but somehow he was able to break the coding ingrained into him.
Right.
And he ends up disappearing to who knows where. But
when he disappears,
that's a story that can be told at another time.
Right, but what we can say, anyways, is that when he disappears, like I said before, this Grandmaster slowly becomes more and more paranoid and more insane, and Chapter Master Thane, anyways, eventually he hears enough, anyways, because remember, he's off fighting orcs at this point. He's trying to destroy, anyways, the mess that the beast left, right?
Right.
And he's using all these Astartes to do this, and he just keeps hearing this stuff coming back from Terra until eventually he hears enough, anyways. He's like, okay, we got to put a stop to this. So then he flies back, anyways. He attempts a coup, and it works barely. And what I mean by barely is that literally, anyways, he leads a whole bunch of Astartes into the palace to kill the Grandmaster Assassin. And they literally all die. The only one that's still left.
Oh, no. It's worse than that. They find out that actually where he is he's hiding out inside of the Eversur temple.
Oh, yes.
So they have to attack the Eversur temple.
Yeah. And what ends up happening is that the only ones that are left, anyways, is the Grand Master, Chapter Master Thane, and this one Everseer that you just mentioned. Yeah. And so, and the Chapter Master, anyways, is kind of on his last legs, but he's got the Grand Master, anyways, cornered. And he's about to shoot him. And we've got this, what's his name again?
Asad Wire?
Asad Wire, anyways, is still there. So the Grand Master's like, aha, we have you beat. Kill him. And the Wire, anyways, literally just kind of looks at him. He short circuits and he goes, no. And then he just leaves.
Well, he goes, no. And then after that, we don't know what happens. We just know that he disappears.
Well, okay. He
We
does
don't know
leave.
if he left or.
No, he left. But then he disappeared after that. He literally just left the room. He's just like, nah, and then just left. What happens to him after that, though, anyways, who can say?
Yeah.
Perhaps I'll do a little bit more digging and find out what happened to him. But regardless, the interesting part about this whole thing, though, is that the chapter master kind of looks at and watches this assassin disappear, turns back anyways. The grandmaster pulls out his bolt or points his bolter at the guy's head, and his last words, the grandmaster's last words, which I find interesting, are, do you want to know what happened to the night haunter? What really happened to him? And then boom.
It's like, I don't
Blew his head
care.
The rest of us do, though, unfortunately. If I had a way to go back in time and I could stop it and be like, whoa, wait, what does he have to say? I would. Just simply because, as we've talked about before anyways, technically, on record, Konrad Kurz was killed by an assassin of the Imperium, right?
Right.
This kind of dictates that maybe that didn't happen. I'm just saying.
Of course, this is coming from the comments of somebody who was insane.
And was about to die.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point. But still, it leaves a little bit of doubt. So who knows? Maybe Conrad's still out there somewhere. Just like talking gibberish to himself, because that's Konrad. But anyways, well, folks, that is all the time we have for today. Oh, before we continue on anyways, what we're doing next week, is there anything else that you'd like to mention anyways about this War of the Beast?
Not that I can think of.
I do have one last thing anyways. What do you think happened to the ambassador?
I have no idea.
You think he became an orc warlord, changed his name? Perhaps now
I would assume that since he isn't brought up anymore, that he died at some point. But I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, join us next week anyways, while we just kind of do a freeform about orcs, because as you know, both me and Yuksen, we love orcs. And we'll just kind of tell some funny stories about orcs and probably mention a couple of other notable orcs. But yeah, next week is just going to be kind of a fun thing. If you guys have anything that you want us to look up, feel free. Just leave them on the comments. But yeah, that's kind of what we're doing next week, right, Yuksen?
Yeah. Quite right, Zeckthar. And for those listening, if you like our box, please follow, subscribe, like, and comment.
Yes, and if you have any questions, like I said before, feel free to leave them in the comments, or you could send them to our website at www.asheraka.com.
Yes, that's www.asharaka.com.
Indeed. And as always, until next time, this is Zeckthar
and Yuksen, signing off.
Woo!